Hey guys, welcome back to my little starting class guide for Dark Souls Remastered or Dark Souls 1, whichever you're playing. My name is Rob, and today we're going to discuss the Cleric. Cleric on pilgrimage wields a mace and casts healing miracles. And wields a mace, buddy. That is what makes this starting class. The mace is, I think, the highest attack power weapon of any of the starting weapons you can get, second only to the battle axe from the bandit. So basically what you have with the cleric is a bandit with maybe not quite as good of a shield, but a stronger weapon, can fast roll when fully equipped, and has a heal miracle. With 11 vitality, that's not bad at all. 11 attunement, one more point, you got 2 attunement slots. 9 endurance isn't that much, so when you start as a cleric, maybe endurance might be something you want to put a few points in to start off with. 12 strength and 8 dex. That's plenty to use the mace. If you want to use like a long sword or something like that, you can always put a few points into dex. 8 intelligence, because who sorceries? What are you talking about? That we don't do all that heretical crap here. You know, we are good religious folk, us clerics. That's what we do. We got 14 faith because we're gonna cast heal miracles, and eventually we're gonna cast really cool things like Sunlight Blade and Wrath of the Gods and things like that. But that's gonna take a while for us to get to, which is one of the downsides of the cleric. It takes a while for you to really get the full potential from a faith build. But part of what makes the cleric so good is because it only soul level 2, that's, second lowest to the pyromancer. You have a whole 14 put into faith. You only need a few more points put into it, like 4 more points into faith, and you can start casting miracles like Homeward, which is very useful. It's the first time you played Dark Souls, and maybe you find that it's hard to remember to stock up on Homeward Bones or things like that. You can attune the Homeward Miracle, and that's basically like a free Homeward Bone. It just costs 1 attunement slot. That's all it is. So yeah, I'll get into the gameplay. The cleric. We'll talk a little bit about the mace and the east-west shield, I think it's called. And there won't be too terribly much else to say about the cleric. So let's dive right in. Alright, you'll notice my character is bald now. I actually just restarted because there was something I wanted to demonstrate by picking the Master Key as my starting gift. And for some reason, I don't know what I was thinking, but I chose the pendant of all things to start with. But anyway, let's have a look at this mace, this beautiful, beautiful mace. And let me equip my canvas talisman, which I'll talk about in a second. The mace, 91 base damage, and with the 9 plus we get from strength scaling, which is scales B with strength, that's 100 damage to start off with. So that is the most attack power of any starting class in the game, even more than the bandit. And the attack type, which is strike, is it's pretty much the best attack type in the game, because there's no enemy that's really strong. There's no enemy in the game that I can think of with a high, like, strike damage defense. Strike, will beat the hell out of anything, whether it's an armored enemy or what have you. Strike is really good. The caveat to the mace is that it does whiff if you miss with it. It's a little slow, and its reach isn't that great. But if you can get past all that, this starting weapon is a beast. Just look at here. Bam. Bam. Staggered him and went in for the kill. Excellent stuff. The shield that the cleric starts with, it looks cool. I like how this shield looks. It's got like a griffin or a phoenix or something like that on it. It's a wooden shield decorated with the ancient symbol of a double-headed eagle painted yellow. So it's a double-headed eagle. That's not what I would have called that, but okay. So it has 88 physical damage reduction, 40 magic, 30 fire, 65 lightning, 44 stability, but only 1 unit of weight, so it's not terrible. You know, the lightning defense is kind of situational because you won't run into many enemies early in the game that use lightning. And by the time you do run into enemies that can do lightning damage, you will have found better shields for dealing with it. So, again, one of the first things you should probably do with this character is get a better shield. Either the heater shield or another shield that I'm going to show you. But first, let's test this bad boy out on the Asylum Demon. I'm just going to jump off of this ledge and give him a nice little tap on his noggin. Bam. By doing a jumping attack while two-handing the mace and landing squarely on this stupid enemy's head, we've dealt over half of his entire life bar. And then just 3 hits later, he's dead. Not bad at all. Cleric OP. If you want to do like a paladin type build, Cleric is the only choice you should be considering. Because eventually you'll be able to find heavier armor. You've already got a nice faith boost. And yeah, you've already got a mace. A freaking mace, man. What else do you need but a mace? Mace! Alright, so something different I'm going to show today, which is something that you can really do this with any character, but to me it makes the most sense to do it with the Cleric. We're going to take a little detour, and this is what you need the Master Key for to do this early in the game. You're going to come down here to New Londo. Notice I haven't spent any souls. I'm going to, but I'm not going to just yet. Because honestly, I'm not entirely sure what stats I'm going to need to upgrade in order to do this. Yeah, doing a little parkour there. You come up here, and ordinarily, you're not going to be able to get through this gate. It is locked until you come out on the other side of it with the key. But with the Master Key, you can open it from the inside and go to an area that you're maybe not supposed to go to this early in the game because you're vastly underpowered for it. Whatever you do, don't go in there. Stay out of there. You're not ready for that. There are bad things in there. Come over here to this bridge. And of course, I mean, you can keep going through this area and do all kinds of sequence breaks and get all kinds of great items, but something that, in my opinion, is specifically good for the Cleric. If you come over here to this undead dragon, you can grab this item, the Soul of a Proud Knight, without waking him up. If you attempt to grab either of those 2 items, he's going to wake up and he's not going to be very happy with you for taking his teddy bear. So, be warned. Walk over here, grab a Stora straight sword. Well, he didn't just wake up. I'm very surprised. So if you get like right here by his claw, just close enough to that corpse, you can get that weapon that I wanted to get. But I also want this other thing, the Dragon Crest shield. Let's get away from him now. He's pissed off. He is all hot and bothered. We just took his teddy, and now he can't sleep anymore, and he's not happy with us. But we need Teddy more than he does. So let's go on back to Firelink Shrine and see what we can do with old Ted. Alright, so you might be asking me, you know, Roka, why did you take that undead dragon's teddy? You know, he was just minding his business, trying to sleep on the edge of a cliff, and you woke him up by taking his Astora straight sword. Why the hell would you do that? It's mean. Well, the reason I would do that is because this is a sword, it's a straight sword with a 14 faith requirement. Guess what the Cleric starts with? 14 faith. Guess what we don't have? 10 dex. Let's come over here. I always do this. What is wrong with you, Robert? You need to be beat. Let's put 10 dex. Let's upgrade our dex to 10. And there we go. Now then, Let's say that you really like the mace, but you wish you had something just a little bit faster. A Stora Straight Sword. The cleric can use it right out the gate with only like investing 2 points into dex. And this thing, it it won't be very useful for long. I'm gonna put it that way. But in the very opening portions of the game, this thing is not bad at all. It does 80 physical damage and 80 magic damage. The magic damage being like a divine type of damage that scales off of your faith. And it can like penetrate through shields that don't have good magic resistance and stuff like that. Like if I could get this asshole to hold his shield up, it's probably not going to. Well, anyway, hold your shield up, you idiot. Well, doesn't do all that much damage through a shield, but it does do some chip damage. So if an enemy is holding a shield up and they don't have that much health left and you just want to smack their shield a few times, you can totally do that. The only kind of crappy thing with the Astora Straight Sword is that like it upgrades with a rare upgrade material. Rare-ish. It's rare in the beginning of the game. And as it upgrades, it doesn't get much stronger at all, even if you level up the stats that it scales with, which is C in Strength, C in Dex, and C in Faith. For some reason, you know, while the Astora Straight Sword does start off really, really good, it doesn't really get much better. So use it for a little while until you find weapons like the Claymore or Halberd or things like that. Put a few more points into your strength and your dex, and you're good to go. And of course, the cleric starts off with a heal miracle and a talisman to use it. It starts off with the canvas talisman, and this is one of the best talismans you can get for like most of the game. So even though you can find a talisman back here behind what's his name's old boy, Petrus. There we go. You can come back here to Petrus's stash and find a talisman, but the canvas talisman will work just as well as the regular talisman, so there's really no point in like equipping anything different. Of course, Petrus himself sells a couple of different kinds of talismans. Neither of them are as good as the canvas, especially if all you're going to use is a heal miracle. Something else I want to point out. The mace does more damage than the Morning Star, even though they're basically the same weapon type. The Morning Star does have a bleed buildup of 300, which is the same as the Bandit's Knife, but since it's so slow, it's really not worth trying to utilize that much, because, yeah, bleed works way better on a fast weapon like a Bandit's Knife or a Katana or the Painting Guardian Sword, which you can get about halfway through the game. I don't know why I got on the subject of bleed damage with a Cleric, but, you know, it do be that way sometimes, you know. So yeah, that's if you want to start with the Master Key and get a decent little secondary weapon for the Cleric, a Stora Straight Sword. Use it for the maybe first couple of areas, but try your best to find something a little better. Once you get to the first blacksmith and start upgrading the mace is going to become so much more powerful that you're not going to have to worry about using the Astora Straight Sword anyway. And then, of course, you know, as you get further and further into the game, if you plan on being a miracle-type build of any kind, then there are a couple of miracles to look out for, like Tranquil Walk of Peace, Homeward, which you can buy from Petrus, Wrath of the Gods, which you can eventually buy in the later game, and not Lightning Blade, it's called Sunlight Blade, which is a weapon buff. That's one of the cons to a faith build in this game, is that it takes a little while to get it really going, but once it does get going, it's actually pretty darn good. Oh, yeah, and the lightning spears that you can get, which kind of have to go out of your way for a little bit. But it's not terribly difficult. If you want to look up a guide on how to get, you know, lightning spears early or whatever, you can totally do that. Something you can do is like just farm souls, get a bunch of soul items, and use them all, and just put all of your points into faith until you get it up to like 25, and then go to the sunlight altar, which is a bit further on, and then you can get like the lightning spheres really early that way. I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing it. It's just something you can do. But yeah, fast rolling with his little rags that he wears. Something else that's kind of funny to me is that the bald cleric, the way he looks starting out, kind of reminds me of Uncle Fester. I think his name was, from the Addams Family. I don't know. I don't know why he reminds me of that, but he just does. I don't know. Google a picture of Uncle Fester, and it just kind of, that's what comes to mind. But anyway, yeah, I'm trying to like think of how to really sum this up. You know, the pros of the cleric: starts off with an awesome weapon and a heal miracle, and he can fast roll. The cons: I mean, he doesn't really start off with any poise with his armor or anything. But then again, most of the starting classes don't. Yeah, just this is the starting class you want to pick for your strength faith build, paladin build. This is the one. Probably get a heater shield as soon as possible so that you'll have something that blocks 100% physical damage reduction with better stability. Or the dragon shield that I picked up right next to the Astora Straight Sword with its 55 stability and 100% damage reduction. Forgot about that. And it has 85% fire damage reduction. That's also cool. But it's heavy. You gotta keep that in mind. It's 3 units, whereas if you get the heater shield, it's only 2. Which might make a significant difference. I'm not actually sure. But anyway, that's about all I have to say for the cleric. This is another excellent starting class. Just keep in mind that you can't really get the best miracles that you'll find are much later in the game. So when you first get a cleric, maybe concentrate on getting some more strength, some more endurance and vitality. As you upgrade the mace, once you find your first blacksmith and you can upgrade the mace, you're going to be doing a lot of damage with it. Yeah, so that's all I have to say for this one. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you soon with the final starting class that we're going to go over, the Deprived. Till then, y'all take care.